But speaking of, I think today we couldn't really have gotten any better. We got that perfect combination of lions, leopards, hyenas, even surprise leopards from Pridelands. The hyena at Pridelands as well, what a surprise. And of course, meeting Ndebele's little one was probably one of the best things that could have happened. So I'm very grateful I got to share that with all of you. From myself, Chris and Cedric, thank you for coming with us today. We have really loved having you with us. And hopefully you'll be with us again tomorrow morning. We'll be out here bright and early, hoping for half the good luck we've had today. And I think if that's the case, we're going to have an amazing day again tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Good night.
Good afternoon, everyone, and a very happy Monday to you all today. So welcome down to Penguin Beach. And you can see the scene down here is a little different at Penguin Beach because I am once again surrounded by frogs. And my name is Jax. I'm going to be your naturalist down here today. We have Igor behind the camera. And yesterday we had a question about frogs and which frog species we have here. And I'm happy to let you know the consensus is the clicking stream frog. And Penguin Beaches, I currently have 17 books in my car about animals and plants and all the different things we get here. And I do not have one about frogs. So I do have one that shows just a little bit of what we might find here. And this would be the clicking stream frog that we would so hope to show you and love to show you, although they are so camouflaged we cannot find them for you on our show today. Welcome down to Penguin Beach. We are going to have a fantastic time with you all today, and I hope that you've had some fun listening to the frogs once more. But what we're going to do is I'm going to send Igor over to the ocean, and we're going to start off our time with our African penguins. Just a reminder that we are a live show, so send us your comments and questions on Twitter using the hashtag WildEarth or on our channels page. Thank you, Greg. I do love a good pun. I think that was totally awesome. And it is lovely to listen to these frogs. So they call day and night. These are the boy frogs. I think they're hoping to have some fun with the girl frogs in the area. And in this area they call in winter because this is the rainy season, but up in the low veld they would call in summer, in their rainy season. But it is another windy day down here at Stony Point. So let's go have a look at the weather forecast and see what conditions we can expect today. So we have very few clouds in the sky, but we'll see as it progresses. And just before the weather rolled, we had some penguins who got into quite a nasty scuffle. It looks like they have calmed down a bit and everything's fine. But, they're fighting again. So we have a serious sparring match to start off our Monday down here at Penguin Beach. So we just have a few penguins on the seashore today.
You can see the hyenas are far more tolerant of vultures than a lion or leopard would be. Occasionally a hyena will bite sort of a couple of tail feathers out of the back of a vulture, but I've never actually seen them, even once they've caught one, actually kill it. Oh, there we go, nearly got him.
Hyena and hippo walking side by side, terror etched on the expression of little hippo. Look at this! Last mad dash! Hyena running along beside it. Baby hippo, jaws gaping. It's gonna make it. It's gonna make it. It did it. The baby hippo against all odds.
Sally, so to my knowledge, we don't have any poisonous frogs who live anywhere close here. What I will do is I am going to go research that, but I can't think of a single poisonous frog that we have in this area, or certainly coastal dwelling. But thank you so much for that question. And I mentioned before, so I have 17 books in my car at the moment because I like to read from a book. I always trust information more if I've got a reference book. But I like a book. I find it's more helpful. So I don't have a frog book with me, but I will endeavor to find out. Luckily, the internet does have some really interesting and really informative pages too. And that's actually how I decided that these were clicking stream frogs. So I asked Flippy, and he says he agrees with Byron. He thought initially it wasn't, but then there was consensus from him. And then I also went to go listen to frog calls, because frogs are very much like birds. You can also identify them from the call. And clicking streams seem to fit the case far more than the Cape Kako frog. That was the other one that Flippy thought it might be. And we do look for these frogs, so there you can hear them where I was sitting. There's a blinding chorus of them, but you cannot see a single one of them. And I find often when we see frogs, it's when we don't want to see them. It's when you put your hand in a basket and suddenly something jumps out. I don't often find them when I am looking for them. The frogs live in harmony with the African penguins, so where I was sitting is a lot of the penguins like to burrow. And the penguins in frame were misbehaving earlier on. So I think we do have several frog species that live very close to the coast. But thanks for your comments, Enoch. I must admit, I don't know all that much about frogs, but I am reading about them for you. And in your coastal regions, what you do have is often areas of high rainfall because you've got the ocean right next to the land. And so where you have high rainfall, you are likely to have different frog species. And along the whole of the South African coastline, and in fact coasts along the world, where you have the ocean, you have rivers and streams and flays that feed into the ocean. There's that phrase that all water eventually ends back in the sea. And so we do have a variety of frog species that would be around, but I can't think of something like a poison dart frog, an obvious frog, that would be something that a human wouldn't want to touch. That is the great thing about doing a show like this. It's the great thing about being a guide, is that people ask you questions that you would never ask yourself, and it forces you to keep reading and keep learning. And I do think that is one of the greatest gifts that we can give ourselves, is to constantly keep learning new skills, improving our knowledge.
This is amazing. And now she's headed towards the elephants. Yeah, here comes the male behind us. This is the male lion coming over here. The elephants are huddled up to protect the young ones in the middle, and he's going after that girl. And they are the buffalo going after the lion, and the lioness, they're still going after them. Look at that guy charging, hey!
It's Scottish Lauren as your underwater biologist. We have a turtle! So this is the knife symbol for turtle. So today is not any ordinary day, it is World Ocean Day. Kamira, so I've just had a thought. And my thought is that I wonder if penguins don't do rough play for fun sometimes, because these penguins in the water were having a little bit of a squabble, and then they calm down, and then they'll sometimes squabble again. And I often say in the show that the penguins will sometimes just like go up and bother another penguin and bully them. But I'm just starting to wonder now if maybe that is a form of play that they actually enjoy. Because there are a lot of animals that love rough and tumble play. Seals do it, whales do it, dogs do it, hyenas do it, humans do it. You know, often with kids, what they enjoy the most is when you sort of shake them about. And I'm not suggesting you shake your children about today, but often that sort of play is what people really enjoy. And there's actually been studies about that sort of play actually being very important for development, and it can be very helpful when it comes to stress relief and connection. And I do wonder now, because sometimes you can see the penguins are genuinely having a go and are very aggressive, and they are fighting each other. And other times I wonder, is that maybe just a way that they have a bit of fun? So I'm really pondering that. What do you think, Igor? Do you think that that's something a penguin would do, just to rough it out a bit for some fun? Do you think that's possible?
I mean, it's not impossible, but what I have noticed is that observing play is more rare, or much more rare in bird species than it is in mammals, for example.
I would agree with that. So I think birds are less inclined to play, but I don't think it's impossible. And I think, having been on Penguin Beach now and looking at even things like the agamas that we haven't watched in a while, but agamas also have different personalities. I was reading a very interesting scientific paper about it. And so I think humans like to think that there's certain traits that are only human traits, and there's certain traits that are only mammal traits. And I think the more time we spend with other species, the more we begin to understand that a lot of the traits that we have, fun, play, grief, those are universal traits in many different species. And I'm very fascinated by that. I think if we approach nature with an open mind and don't necessarily always have to label what we see, but try and observe it and try and understand it, so we're looking at are we looking at these three having a fight?
No, we're looking at those having a fight.
So we were looking at other penguins having a fight, and to our left we've got three penguins. There were two penguins fighting, and the other one came in and started to join the battle. It does seem like they are all a little bit grumpy today. Maybe penguins have a work week like us. Maybe they just have a day that they dislike more than others. they certainly do seem to pick more battles than most other bird species. Other birds tend to just carry on with their lives. But penguins seem to enjoy a good scuffle every now and then. It's also a good skill. I think when we talk about play, I personally believe that animals do play purely for the enjoyment of playing. But play is also important because it teaches you some really good skills. And you know, penguins do have to use their beaks to spear fish, and they've got to use their beaks to, we've got what is not exactly a fight, but more of a flirt happening there. You know, play teaches you skills that you need when you are out and doing other things and interacting with other animals. So penguins fighting amongst each other can help them to fight with other animals. Samantha, they really do. I think the Three Musketeers work together quite well, but I also think that in all teams there can sometimes be friction. And they look like they've dissipated. They're taking a break. Hopefully they'll be sorting out their problems a little bit later on. And I think we've spoken about this before. Like when the penguins go out fishing, we don't really know if they have a group, you know, their buddies, their crew, their team, they head out fishing. It's likely just random penguins, but it's very difficult to study that, very difficult to know that. So it could be that some of the penguins that we see here are actually, you know, associated. They know each other, they fish together, they squabble together.
The Safari Guide of the Year 2022 is approaching us rapidly. This year, we'll be heading to Bushwise Field Guides at the Southern African Wildlife College from the 27th June till the 2nd of July. We will soon meet all our contestants who are vying for the prize of being the very best of the best, and the judges who will put them through their paces. Join me, Steve Falconbridge, as we dream it, guide it, win it.
Arctic Circle, that's an awesome question. So Igor was actually asking me before the show, he's like, if you could put any of your books on an app that you could keep with you, which book would it be? And it's actually not a book I have in my car at the moment, but my personal favorite book that I own is Whales and Dolphins of the Subregion by Dr. Peter Best. So Peter Best was the sort of father of whale science in South Africa, and it is just the most stunning book. It's beautifully illustrated, it's got scientific references, but it also has story in it. And a few years ago in the Overberg we had these really big fires, and I was actually going to visit people in Cape Town, and I just thought, you know what, if anything were to happen, that would be what I would miss. And so I put my book in my car just in case, because you can get other copies of it, but it's astonishingly beautiful. I love it's Whales and Dolphins of the Subregion by Dr. Peter Best. Really, really fantastic book that I would recommend having a look at, but there are so many. I always admire people who do these reference books because I think that they put in so much work. You know, we see 300 different species in a book, and they've had to compile all the information, the photographs, the illustrations, speak to so many people to put together all of that information. So I love my reference books, and my friends know it because they always buy them for me as gifts, which I think is really, really sweet. But Arctic Circle, you had another question for me yesterday. Also amazing question, because you asked about when penguins would not be considered threatened, and you set me down the burrowing petrel hole once again. And I was looking, so historically penguin numbers were estimated to be about 1 million. Now, I personally don't believe that we will ever have 1 million African penguins living along our coast anymore, because the fish has changed, the habitat has changed, other birds have colonized where the penguins were living. But penguins were assessed as threatened back in 1988. And around 1988, there was something like 69,000 breeding pairs of African penguins. And so I think that if we got back to that sort of number, and then we started to see an increase in penguins, in penguin numbers, and the way that they assess that is very interesting. They do it over 3 generations. So they do it over any animal in the world. So if it's elephants, obviously 3 generations takes very long. If you look at penguins, 3 generations would be a lot shorter. That would be, say, 3, 3, 3 over about 9 years. And what they're looking at is the population increasing or decreasing during that time. And we've got a poor juvenile who's molting, that's being chased about on the seashore as I'm talking about the penguins and their endangered species status. And so I couldn't find an exact number as to when penguins would then be considered not threatened anymore, but it would be assessed based on an increasing population to a point where it's stable. And I think 70,000 breeding pairs would be a fairly stable population. But coming from the turn of the century, back in 1900, we had about 1 million breeding pairs of African penguins. So it's a very tricky question to answer. The population has been in decline since the 1900s. There's been very few periods where the population has actually increased. It's been almost a decline all the way.
If you would like to be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration in Kenya live on WildEarth, then we have some great news for you. There are a few places left to join our expeditions in August and September this year. You'll be staying in an exclusive tented camp with ensuite bedrooms nestled in the riverine woodlands of the Talek River. Head over to our website to book your bucket list experience today. WildEarth Expeditions. Travel with purpose.
If you are a WildEarth explorer, we have exciting news for you.
The winner of this month's prize giveaway will win a hamper full of Explorer merchandise.
Like this fantastic t-shirt that comes in plenty of great colors, a very useful tote bag, or even a cap.
For those in the southern hemisphere that's heading into winter, a sweatshirt to keep you warm.
Head over to the WildEarth Explorers page. Sign up to be a WildEarth Explorer and you could win all of these goodies.
WildEarth, it's in your nature.
Ladies, that's a very interesting question. So they wouldn't do it in the same way you would have, I'm thinking of maybe the lions and the leopards of Juvenile. It wouldn't be this all-out battle of, this is my place, don't come here. But certainly penguins would, and when they're establishing territories, you don't have a juvenile male penguin going to the nest of an established male penguin and saying to them, this is my home, now get out. That's not really how it works. What they would do is they would establish their territory, so they would find a nest, they would find a place that would be suitable for them. And then if another penguin had to come to that nest in that area, they would likely chase them out. And I have seen it here before where there is a penguin pottering around a nest that is not theirs. And sometimes they'll even sit around that nest. And when the owners of the nest come around, they make it very clear that that penguin is not welcome and they will chase them out of the area and sometimes actually like hold on to them. And there was one penguin I saw here in the left wing where they chased the penguin out the nest, and the intruder was trying to get away, and the owner of the nest was holding on to the intruder all the way from the parking lot down actually to the rocks. So they are very aggressive, and we've got penguins who are now having some fun under the water there. So they can be quite aggressive with each other, but it's not. There isn't, penguins will use the same successive breeding site for years if they can. And Mel, our director, is saying she thinks the penguins are all on edge because they don't like Mondays. She thinks Mondays are a tough day to be an African penguin. But yeah, it's not in the same way that a lot of other animals would fight over territory. It's kind of like, I found this place, this is my place, this is where I hang out, and I don't think that penguins are they're not constantly defending their territory. Oh, we've got more fights, and we've got several penguins now hopping into the water, so I think we might take a look at them and see where they're going and what they're doing. Oh, there we go. Now we've got a penguin who's hanging on. Look, how cool is that? I love it when birds do. I don't love that he's getting hurt. So, Betty, juveniles are accepted into colonies once they develop their adult plumage. So once they molt into their adult plumage, they're far more accepted. As a juvenile, they're welcome to come sit on the seashore. My mind is in the depths today. And they're welcome to sit here, so they won't be chased out. They will just be bullied because they are a juvenile. And so any penguin, in theory, could move in here. And once they have adult coloration, it's a lot easier for them to actually find and establish, they can establish themselves within a colony. But when they're in their juvenile coat, the adults get irritated just, I think, at the sight of them sometimes, and then they'll give them a bit of trouble. But it's not like they chase them out to sea and make them stay away. They'll chase them along the shore a bit, and then once they've realized that they're tired of the game, then they often just leave the juvenile alone. I really hope you guys got to see. It's exactly what I was talking about, where the penguin was holding on to the other penguin. So they almost hold onto the skin and they don't let go, and they let the penguin pull them. Oh, Igor is trying to mimic the penguin. He's trying to bite onto something and use his hands to slap. And it's always strange because there's sometimes where we mention things on the show, and then as we mention it, the animals are very kind and they show us exactly what we were talking about. So days like the other day when we were looking for Pepper, and I literally just mentioned Pepper, and then Jason found Pepper. And I think sometimes it almost looks scripted. There was also the day that Igor and I saw the otter, and we were talking about rare mammals that you could see here. So some days it almost feels like it's scripted. Are we going to go look at the cormorants quickly? So Igor and I are just changing our sights for you quickly. And then I think luckily there are so many days where we say, look at the bird.
All things bright and beautiful. All creatures great and small. All things wise and wonderful. WildEarth will see it all. Each little flower that opens. Each river that does flow. Join us to celebrate World Environment Day for a very special safari show. We want to hear from our WildEarth kids this World Environment Day. You are the future protectors of our planet, and we want to help you understand what needs to be preserved.
We saw a termite mound. We got to see a lot of unique animals. Some trees are male and female. That's pretty cool, right? A whole lot of different creatures. It was amazing that we could ask questions.
Kids, send in your questions for our special World Environment Day safari on June the 5th.
It was so cool.
Susie, very interesting question. Birds of prey that hunt penguins. So there would be nothing here. Quite weirdly, your pelicans will go after penguin chicks, I believe. And kelp gulls gulls will take chicks, they will also take eggs. Other gull species like the sub-Antarctic skua, in theory, should and would, but the sub-Antarctic skuas that we see here don't come to land, they only spend time at sea. So I've never seen a bird of prey hunting penguins here. In theory they could. We don't have very many large birds of prey in this area. We do have the Verreaux's eagle in some areas, we do have the fish eagle, but there's nothing here that would really swoop down and take a penguin off a nest. So on the ocean, your oceanic birds of prey, because a penguin is in fact a bird of prey, that could pose a potential risk to African penguins would be your sub-Antarctic skuas, your giant petrels, which we also get in the area but never on land. Yeah, those would be the two that would really cause some trouble, but luckily I've never observed it here. We do get a lot of giant petrels around Dyer Island, which is also a penguin breeding colony, but I've never seen them go to land. And I've also never seen them bother penguins in the water, because they find it easier in this area to go for carrion, which is dead animals. The skuas, the sub-Antarctic skua, I've actually seen them drown a kelp gull. So two skuas took a kelp gull down and they put it in the water and they tried to drown it. But I think penguins can dive in the water, so I think that penguins would be an unlikely target in that respect because they would get away too easily. And historically, giant petrels and sub-Antarctic skuas wouldn't come to land here, and so for them to start doing that is not impossible, but certainly would be very unusual. And I think humans being on land here is a big deterrent for that. So I hope I've answered your question. I will have a look to see if there are any raptors, any cases of raptors having taken baby penguins. But to my knowledge, nothing along our coastline. Yesterday we did chat a lot about the kelp, and you can see we've still got kelp on the seashore and kelp in the sea, and kelp is in fact a brown algae. I did go and double check myself on that. So I think the name I'm hearing is Willy Wild Guy. I hope Billy Wild Guy, sorry I went for the alliteration there. And you're asking, how do we keep track of penguin populations? So if you're looking at the African penguin population, South Africa actually has a management plan with all of the stakeholders, which are the fancy people. So it's the researchers, everybody who has a stake in protecting penguins and having the population continue. And so what they would do is you would have researchers at every colony, you'd have managers at every colony, and they would assess their own colonies. Then they would all get together and they would bring that data together. So let's say I'm going to pull a number out here. Let's say here I think there's 1,500 breeding pairs here, which is 3,000 birds. Eagle's looking at me funny. I believe it's 1,500 breeding pairs here. So Gavin here would do a count. He would do a census where he would count the different birds, and then Gavin would give that data into the scientists, and they would then take the other colonies, so let's say Dyer Island, Malchus Island, and all the different colonies along the coast. They would combine that information, and then that is how you would assess that. So it's scientists working together to be able to share that data and then get a full number. And with penguins, it's quite easy. With seabirds, what is lovely is they have to come to land, which makes them so easy to study population-wise, because they have to come here, and then you can actually almost count every single penguin. With other oceanic animals, it's super tricky because you're not seeing every single animal. And so that's a lot harder because you've got to extrapolate data. But they would do the same with penguins of other species around the world. So you would have scientists, and let's look at a species like great white sharks or southern right whales.
Find a way into the kill to get their fill in there as well. But they're also going to be told off. See, lions are not great at sharing their food. Okay, guys. Let me just taking frustration out on the other lion, but you see, it was interesting.
The Safari Guide of the Year 2022 is approaching us rapidly. This year, we'll be heading to Bushwise Field Guides at the Southern African Wildlife College from the 27th June till the 2nd of July. We will soon meet all our contestants who are vying for the prize of being the very best of the best, and the judges who will put them through their paces. Join me, Steve Falconbridge, as we dream it, guide it, win it.
Andrew, the video guy, so I know that as a human it's very difficult to comprehend how you can survive the cold of the Atlantic, but these penguins are super well insulated. They're actually nice and fatty, and those feathers do an incredible job of keeping these penguins really warm. But penguins also create their own metabolic heat. So when penguins are swimming about in the ocean, all that exercise is also keeping them nice and warm. Just to finish my thought on the population, so essentially the way that we understand populations is you study your area, I study mine, we bring the data together, and that is how we know how many animals would be in any particular population. And we have spent so much time watching penguins today, I am going to challenge Igor to find us another species of bird. And I want to see...
Anyone?
Yeah, any species of bird. So Igor is aiming high. Igor is showing us some beautiful clouds because he could have gone easy for the cormorants. I've just given you a nice listen in on some Hyena ibis that flew by. But Igor went for the hardest possible bird. He went for the one bird flying away from us in the sky. So I admire the I admire the attempt. And he's now found us some Hyena ibis sitting on the rocks. So that lovely wah wah was courtesy of them earlier on. Very South African sound, very synonymous with South Africa. And haridas were not always a big fan of the seashore, but they realize that there's lots of food for them here, and so now they will feed in and amongst our seashore animals, like your oyster catchers. We are having a Hyena day, it seems. The Igor actually also found something else for us this morning. We were having a little bit of a walk, and Igor likes to have a look at what is on the ground. And I do know that you guys love to know what else we find here. We always get those questions. And I can't show you the animal itself, but what I can show you is remnants of the animal. And what I have for you, I'm just going to walk into frame, is a quill from a porcupine. So we actually have a lot of porcupines in this area. You often see them at night if you drive on the roads, which is why you should always drive very, very carefully if you live in a rural area. And so the quills naturally just fall out. It's always good if you see porcupine quills in the shop, it's best not to buy them because you don't know where they come from. But if you pick up a quill, then you can take it home if you'd like. Once they are out of the porcupine, they don't serve very much function, but they are incredibly sharp. So do be careful if you are carrying one and walking with one. I've already poked myself with this here quill. And just like our penguins, black and white animal, I'm sure that you do get to see them on our safari show. Every now and then, they must pop up. And that's just one of the animals that we get here, one of the nighttime animals that we would find in this area. We also get things like polecats, we get which are also known as zorillas, we get the caracal. And we don't see them all that often, but we do have remnants and signs that these animals like to occur in this area. I am going to go behind the camera again.
If you would like to be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration in Kenya live on WildEarth, then we have some great news for you. There are a few places left to join our expeditions in August and September this year. You'll be staying in an exclusive tented camp with ensuite bedrooms nestled in the riverine woodlands of the Talek River. Head over to our website to book your bucket list experience today. WildEarth Expeditions. Travel with purpose.
This morning we were driving and suddenly we heard a lot of commotion. I think the wild dogs might have caught an impala then, or the leopard might have caught the impala, and as it was dragging it, the wild dog saw it, started chasing the leopard up into the tree, and then the hyenas came to steal it. But what an incredible sighting.
Circle, I love that question. That's a really cool question. So no, we don't often see vultures, but just up the coast from us to the east, so that is sort of in front of us, the last mountain you see is Gansbaai, and it's behind Gansbaai, about 2 hours east. There is De Hoop Nature Reserve, and in De Hoop Nature Reserve we have a Cape vulture colony. The Cape vultures haven't done all that well over the years, so it's lovely to have a stronghold there. The Cape vulture looks a lot like the white-backed vulture, but they've got a hazel-coloured eye. Oh, I just want to see what this little egret is doing. Little egret is moving between the penguins, very brave, and the penguin is chasing the egret. This egret is so brave. But Penguin Beaches, I actually have a question for you because it's piqued my curiosity. What is the most... This is amazing. This is so funny. I feel like if ever there was a good illustration of Igor and my working relationship, I think that was it. I think that's what we've just seen with that penguin and that egret. That was amazing. But Penguin Beach is what I really want to know is what is the most underrated animal on Penguin Beach? Who are we skipping as the guides? Who do we not give enough attention to? Let me know what you think, because I'm curious about that now. Because I think I certainly don't give the egret enough attention. I don't often give the wagtails the attention they might deserve. So send Mel, our director, a message or put it up onto Twitter. That was the most fun. And that egret wasn't willing to give up. That was amazing. I love how the egret was set on staying and wasn't moving, sticking to its guns. I've always said the only sort of fight that we have here is with the penguins and the Egyptian goose. They're the only ones who really give the penguins a run for their money. But this little egret is proving otherwise. And that penguin is, I love how the penguin gets on its belly. It's almost like it's stalking the egret when it follows it. I think it's easier for the penguins to be on their belly, but it does look like a bit of a stalk. I do have a newfound respect for this bird. We do have the egret around quite often, and I have spent a bit of time, I think, with Flippy and also with Jason with the egret in the last month. And we have watched the egret try to fish, but I haven't seen the egret chase, or the penguins chase the egret as much as what we have in the last couple of days. And often these birds will stand for ages and be very, very still. Momo, what a question. Are all porcupine quills unique? I mean, porcupines have lots of quills, so I wouldn't say that every porcupine has, if I'm looking at it from a fingerprint perspective, like every single one of our fingerprints is unique. It's likely that no two quills are 100% exactly the same. I think in life there are very few things that are 100% exactly the same. I'm not sure that would be discernible. I'm not sure you'd be able to actually pick up that it's, you know, who the quill was from. Some quills are very white and some quills are very dark. So there is definitely color variation. Igor, what do you say? You picked up the quill. I feel like the quill is your responsibility. What do you?
I don't know. I almost feel like there would be similarities and uniqueness in all of them. I mean, it's the same thing with spot patterns on penguins or zebra stripes on zebras. They're all kind of similar. There's a certain penguinness that unites them all, but I do think they're all unique. Same with a porcupine quillness.
I think we're very good at not answering this question.
In that tree are two carcasses. There's a duiker carcass and a waterbuck. Well, it's not as graceful as... He's a bit hesitant because, well, climbing a tree is not the easiest, but he will get up there eventually. So let's see, there he goes. Look at the power in that. That is a massive 500-pound cat that has just climbed the marula tree and is up in there. How cool is this? I don't know how he's going to do it, but let's see.
If you are a WildEarth explorer, we have exciting news for you.
The winner of this month's prize giveaway will win a hamper full of Explorer merchandise.
Like this fantastic t-shirt that comes in plenty of great colors, a very useful tote bag, or even a cap.
For those in the southern hemisphere that's heading into winter, a sweatshirt to keep you warm.
Head over to the WildEarth Explorers page. Sign up to be a WildEarth Explorer and you could win all of these goodies.
WildEarth, it's in your nature.
This guy has the coolest ponytail.
So Mel says she is going to be asking Tess and Cedric to see what they say. And Igor thinks that this beautiful little egret has a very nice ponytail. I do think their feathers are very beautiful. I think maybe we should have a close view of this egret and have a nice, good look. That plume on the head. And just as I say we should have a close view, the egret has decided that that's not what the egret wants today. This egret has flown very purposely into a penguin's way. I feel like this egret has chosen violence today. It's not stayed away from the penguins. going to leave that little egret and have a look to see what else we can find you. And Eagle and I are still with you for tomorrow and Wednesday. I think Eagle's here all week, but I will be back on Friday. This weekend we've got World Environment Day, so we'll be doing the Rocky Shores. We did a show, Flippy and I did a show that we really enjoyed a while ago, so Eagle doesn't know it yet, but that's where he is on World Environment Day. Nice just to take a wider view sometimes of the area, take in the mountains. This is a really beautiful stretch of coast. You can see it is windy today, but the storm is definitely dissipating. The sea's not quite as big as what it has been over the last couple of days. And it's going to be lovely to spend winter and just see how things change. That mountain over there marks the start of Hyena. So Hyena was one of the early towns that was established in this area. The town that you can see towards the left in the frame is the town of Houston. So Houston has a fishing community. And lots of very interesting history, lots of stories in the Overberg. I really like history. I love to sort of dive into what's happened in these areas.
All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful. WildEarth will see it all. Each little flower that opens, each river that does flow. Join us to celebrate World Environment Day for a very special safari show.
The Safari Guide of the Year 2022 is approaching us rapidly. This year, we'll be heading to Bushwise Field Guides at the Southern African Wildlife College from the 27th June till the 2nd of July. We will soon meet all our contestants who are vying for the prize of being the very best of the best, and the judges who will put them through their paces. Join me, Steve Falconbridge, as we dream it, guide it, win it.
I actually think I want us to go and have a look over at Cormorant Cove. And Eagle was hoping to show you a bird acting in a peculiar way, but the bird stopped now. So I think we'll go take a quick look to see how our cormorants are faring, how they're doing over at the point. And back in the day, this area was known as Weigat, whaling station, and Weigat is essentially alluding to the fact that this area is very desolate, it's very far away from everything, it's very wild. It's the perfect place for seabirds to live, where there are not so many people around. Eagle, would you like to show the viewers what you've just put in my hand?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. So Eagle has just picked something up off the floor and he's shown it to me, so I think he'd like to show it to you. Honey badger, always very good questions. I would say yes to that. I think that most penguins are struggling with the changes that we have in the ocean at the moment. So I will just double check that, but I don't foresee that any penguin species, I think most of them are actually threatened. But I will go have a look and I will mention it on the show tomorrow. But the oceans are changing, and most of your Antarctic penguins would like a lot more ice. They would like a lot more krill. And so that's been a bit of a stress for some of our penguin species. And I'm just letting Igor have a moment. I think this is a pupae of some sort of moth. That would be my, are you able to capture that? I have no idea what this is, I must be quite honest. I think it's either from a moth or a butterfly. What I will try to do is I'll go have a look and see if I'm able to find something to identify this. See if I can move it. It's quite soft to touch.
If you would like to be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration in Kenya live on WildEarth, then we have some great news for you. There are a few places left to join our expeditions in August and September this year. You'll be staying in an exclusive tented camp with ensuite bedrooms nestled in the riverine woodlands of the Talek River. Head over to our website to book your bucket list experience today. WildEarth Expeditions. Travel with purpose. We want to hear from our WildEarth kids this World Environment Day. You are the future protectors of our planet, and we want to help you understand what needs to be preserved.
We saw a termite mound. We got to see a lot of unique animals. Some trees are male and female. That's pretty cool, right?
A whole lot of different creatures.
It was amazing that we could ask questions.
Kids, send in your questions for our special World Environment Day safari on June the 5th.
It was so cool!
So I now have a worm that I'm going to have to take home because Eagles picked it up. So an interesting additive to my day. Just protecting the worm. So Eagle's very upset because I put the worm between two books, but I haven't squished the worm. I've just put a smaller book.
It's like 1,000,000 times its body weight.
It's not. So Eagle's very upset with me now. So, oh, you see, now I've lost my worm again. So Eagle's not agreeing with my logic. So what I'm doing is I'm slowly placing the worm between two of my books so that I'm able to keep the worm without it blowing away, so that I can identify the worm for tomorrow. So there's reasoning behind what I'm doing, and Eagle is disagreeing with my reasoning, viewers.
Zax, if only you were a marsupial, you could just put it in your pouch.
I actually wish I was a marsupial. It would be very helpful. But enough of this banter, because it is almost time for us to say goodbye. So Cedric is after spots again. He's looking for male and female leopard tracks. Thank you, Lisa. I'm glad that you had fun today. I think we found some interesting things on our show. Sounds like everybody had so much fun yesterday. They're going to go do exactly what they did. So Tessa is looking for hyenas, but Chris is not on the elephants today. Chris is looking for a leopard that killed an impala earlier. So it sounds like there's lots of fun to be had on that side of the world. So we've had a good time with you today. We got to see some angry penguins. We got to see a little egret. We got to see an egret squaring off with a penguin. I hope that you enjoyed getting to see the porcupine quill. I will see if I can find anything on that worm. And on behalf of Igor and I, thank you so much for taking time on your Monday to spend with us. We hope you had a good time. We will see you again here tomorrow. I think we're going to hop over to Jacuzzi to see how the Shire is doing. So have a wonderful rest of your Monday. Keep warm, keep safe, and we will see you again soon. Thank you so much.
This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.